Welcome to Prompt and Circumstance, where four seasoned business leaders pull up to the round table and riff on the wild world of AI. It's human-friendly banter about code, culture, and CEO reality checks. Served up by Mike Richardson, Ryan Neiman, Mark Redgrave, and Tom Adams. No jargon, no hype, just real talk from four guys who've seen it all and aren't afraid to say what everyone's thinking. Pull up a chair, let's get into it.
Hey, greetings and salutations. A heartfelt welcome back to this episode of the Prompt and Circumstance podcast, where we try and make sense of all things AI, code and culture, and find a pathway forwards in all the complexity. Joining me today are two of my three colleagues, Ryan Neiman and Mike Richardson. The illustrious Mark Redgrave is celebrating his birthday in some far-off land with palm trees and clear blue seas, so he's not with us today.
Lucky guy.
I know, gentlemen. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, we're glad you're here. So, gentlemen, let's jump in. It's been 2 weeks since our last confession, and I think it's only appropriate to confess what we've been working on, what's been interesting, what are we seeing, what are we aware of. Mike, let's start with you this week.
Yeah, well, as I said last time, I've been playing with my new Surface Pro, Copilot, Snapdragon, you name it, I've got it, and I'm enjoying exploring all of that. Plus, I've got the new Claude memory device that I can record and interrogate at the end of the day. But on Ryan's recommendation an episode or two ago, I picked up the book, The AI-Driven Leader. I think it's by Jeff Woods. And I'm starting to listen to that through Audible as I do my workout and sort of daily routines. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm a couple of chapters in. And the number one thing that I've taken away so far is what he's really making the case for is that AI is a strategic thinking supplement. It's a thought partner for strategic thinking. And I really, and decision making, and I really like the clarity of that. So that's what I've been up to, Tom.
Very cool.
Nice
Ryan,
job, Mike. Way to dive in. Yeah.
And what about you, Ryan? What have you been working on?
Well, I think some of it will lead into some of the things I want to demo and showcase today. I really leaned in on AI literacy and how do you enable that AI literacy? Much like what Mike is talking about, how do you start to make that transition to having some sort of discourse with AI that can challenge your thoughts and elevate your strategic thinking? So I think we've got some good stuff today to review.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. Well, I'll just give you my my short form version of what I've been working on. But I too, Ryan, since our last conversation 2 weeks ago, have sort of unpacked your prompt structures and things like that. Because I think a number of weeks ago, I talked about using voice as my primary typing tool. And I've got this tool called Super Whisper, and in Super Whisper, I can create prompts based on what my voice says. And so I've prompted a prompt to create code-based prompts to follow your recommendations.
There you
go.
go.
So now I talk, and instead of it just sort of cleaning up my script, basically the transcription, it now actually creates a prompt that builds software, does any kind of things based on your structure. So I'm still working on it to try and make that work better. But man, that's been interesting. I think we're sort of focused on prompts, but that's been my first one. Second one is I said I would be testing Warp, which is a terminal tool, which is kind of trying to be like Claude Code, but my goodness, it's better. So I built a software last week with it. So an app which basically is an HR voice recording software for field managers. So anyone out in the field who's kind of managing, say, drivers and stuff like that, if they have an issue with them and they don't have time to type, they just voice it. It goes into a repository, AI cleans it up to look like HR language, puts it in a database so that the HR department can manage it after the fact for things. Pretty cool to be able to do that with no knowledge of what I'm doing. So,
and everybody, I just want to keep reminding you at all times, as you've heard in previous episodes, and Tom does not know how to code.
Well done. So that was the if you see something, say something application. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I went, well, I keep hearing from my coaching clients that one of these challenges is they wish their supervisors, who are often active, especially in the service-based business, are active. They can't type their HR notes very easily. So I just went, oh, there's got to be a way to do this. And so I created a voice note app for that. So using some of the same toolkit, but I did this with Warp this time. So that was fun.
Yeah, what I really love about that is it's able to consume that in a way that's easy for the user, meaning,
Yes.
I'm driving away and I need a hands-free way of communicating that. So being able to capture that information and then translate it into a meaningful way for the enterprise, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Great job,
So,
Tom.
anyways, that was my week, and continue to be trying to figure this stuff out in a very practical way. So, yeah, so that's where we've been. We know that Mark Redgrave has been just basically inputting sand. So that's pretty much all he's been doing, probably sand and salt water.
Good for him.
And good for him on his birthday. But today we want to get into the meat of it. And I think we discussed this last time. We did discuss it, but I felt like it might be more important to actually take Mr. Prompt himself, the king of prompts, the aficionado of prompt structure, and rather than just talk about it, show it to us. And so I think we're going to admit that this might be better viewed on YouTube than it is by voice, but even by voice, you'll pick this up. So if you're listening to it and you want to make sense of it and see it in action, you could pop over to YouTube and see it on YouTube. So Ryan, would you share your screen and show us a little bit of some prompt, sort of some baseline prompt stuff, and then elevate that into maybe more sophisticated stuff the way we talked about it last time?
Yeah, you bet. Tom, let me give a little bit of history maybe first. So I think one of the first things I recognized, I would say in 2023, much like everybody else coming into that year, you may have tried an LLM, probably, ChatGPT. And I recognized that the better that I was prompting, the better I was getting responses. But I seem to recall that year, there was just a flood of information on how to better prompt, and posts were just filling up my LinkedIn feed about how to do that and improve the outcomes with better prompting. And so I started to think about that and came up with some tips and tricks. And I think you'll pick up a number of those. And as Tom mentions, this might be better on YouTube, but I will do my best to provide a bit of a voiceover for everybody as well. So what I've done is gone back to some of the tools I use, but I went at it as if I were maybe somebody who's just starting out or has a base subscription or doesn't even have a subscription. I should start there. So I started off with ChatGPT and another tool that I'll show you, and we'll kind of step through what that looked like. So this is just your basic ChatGPT. I've logged in, and really there's no settings there. I haven't even done my first prompt. So we use that as a kind of a construct. The next thing I'll introduce is a platform called Poe. I believe it's named after Edgar Allan Poe, so POE.com. And you can go to Poe. And again, I started with just no subscription or anything, just logged in. And what I think Poe does is a really good job of elevating a large number of language models that you can try. I mean, really an extensive laundry list, almost a buffet, you could say, of different language models.
You're making me hungry.
Now, Tom, you'd said that you had some experience using Poe.
Yeah, I actually played with a subscription for a couple of months, and I think it's got really good bones to it. It's a really cool concept. I just found that it kind of ran out of memory very quickly. It ran out of, So I think it's a fabulous tool to get a insight into how different LLMs respond to something. But I think it's a very interesting tool to look at.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's almost like a Las Vegas buffet, because you get an immense amount of appetizer and dessert, but there's definitely somebody serving out the prime rib. And so we'll see that as we kind of go through.
Right.
But yeah, So let me kind of show you. So as you log into Poe, there is a number of bots in different categories, and you can just start to see the laundry list, and it just keeps going
Oh my
from
gosh.
search bots to image bots, video, audio generation, bots to make applications. It just keeps going. So you can try any one of these, but maybe as Tom mentions, there are some that are paid for. So one of the things I wanted to illustrate was reinforcing at the core is a statistical correlation of what you type in a prompt and what it comes back with, the prompt response, right? And so one of the things I started with was what I'll call the balloon sentence example. So I'll switch over just to make maybe the demo a little bit easier. What I did is I went into Poe and I just prompted. I selected the GPT 3.5 Turbo Roll, just picked a GPT, ChatGPT for an example. And
which is an early one, which is a relatively early one from them.
Right. Yep. And I purposefully picked that because I wanted to start, like a little bit earlier, like what might have been the response that you would get. So I said, complete this sentence. The balloon is. And Mike or Tom, what do you think would be the next statistical word that comes to mind?
I think red, like that's the thing that I don't know.
Ding, ding, ding.
Red balloons.
I was going to say the same. Truly,
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, there's a so that's the next statistical word that would come up. There's also some other combinations of words that would be words like floating come to mind, and so those are all related to the way at its core. And this is a very simple example of what is the next word to finish the sentence. And so if I look down here, 3.5 came back with floating in the sky. And I thought, okay, that's pretty close. I was expecting it to actually say red, but floating in the sky. And then what I thought was interesting is now I want to compare that to how would other large language models complete it. So I thought I'd stay in the GPT family, right? Poe does a really good job. It just has / compare and then @ symbol, and it'll give you the choice. You can choose any number of LLMs. So pick the next one. So I thought, okay, I'll stay in GPT, went to GPT-5 chat, and its response was, the balloon is floating gently in the air. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So it's a little bit more alliteration there.
Yep.
That's interesting. So then I thought I'd go over to Grok. I don't use Grok very often, but I thought I really want to get a sense of what Grok is about. Grok 4, well, that was a paid version. So I didn't have enough points, right. I think it says, to answer the request. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go on to a different, maybe earlier version that's free and included with my non-paid subscription. And so I compared it with Grok 3 and it said thinking. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
The balloon is thinking?
Well, the GPT, so the LLM is I should say is thinking. And so this is interesting, but Grok 3 came back and really started to explain the way it would complete the sentence. So, it said, it reiterated what I had said, which is complete the sentence. It said, well, it's an incomplete sentence. There's possible completions that are descriptive, narrative, humorous, or educational. And I need to reconsider this context. And then the instruction and then it just kind of goes on. And it's like, okay, well, I need to complete this sentence. So a single completion might be sufficient. I'm like, well, okay. Boy, it's really thinking. Now it goes on to the final completion idea. Or wait a minute, there's a twist. The balloon is about to pop, and it actually goes through its thinking to come up with the final answer, which is the balloon is floating high in the sky, carried away by a gentle breeze.
And by the way, everybody, you go to YouTube and look at this, because while Ryan has been speaking, he's been scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and we've seen all of the different angles of response that Grok gave him. And it's really intriguing to see these different dimensions that it's explored of how to complete that sentence. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is as well. It illustrates a couple things. One, we talked about on a prior episode, you're in control of what you prompt and you're in control of adding some attachments or custom instructions. But really, this is on the logic on the back end and how it takes your prompt and thinks about how it's going to respond or programmatically executes how it's going to respond. So let's keep going. So I thought, all right, let's compare it to some others. And I thought, I don't use Claude as much. So I thought I'd go to Claude 4 and it said, you don't have enough points for that. And I thought, okay, well, I'll go back. So I'm going to go to Claude Sonnet 3.7. And it came back with the balloon is floating gently in the breeze. Its bright colors catching the sunlight. Well, that's quite
poetic.
It is.
Well, Claude tends to be more writer focused. It's either software focused or writer focused, and it'll try to do better writing for some reason. That's its predisposition.
The next step, despite what Mark gave me the warning I shouldn't be talking to a llama, I decided to talk to a llama. So I went to Llama 4, Maverick, and it just said floating gently in the air. It didn't just and gave the triple ellipse and just floating gently in the air. Went on to Gemini 2.5 Flash. Ooh, it's thinking, right? And so it starts thinking, it's formulating possible answers, and it gives me 4. The balloon is red. Finally, we got a balloon is red. The balloon is floating. The balloon is full of air. And the last one, the balloon is about to pop. Okay, so now I'm intrigued. I want to keep going. And I went to Mistral Large. Now, Tommy, you said you know a little bit about Mistral Large. I was not as familiar with Mistral.
Yeah, it's a European, I think out of France, and it's just another smaller LLM company that's building this, and they've got some good stuff going on. So,
and it came back with, here are a few possible ways to complete the sentence. And without exhausting all of them, there's 5. We're talking about high in the sky, red and shiny, all the way to filled with helium. Okay, so I continue to be intrigued, want to learn more. And I thought DeepSeek. All right. I honestly have never used, prior to this moment, DeepSeek.
oh
Heard
yeah,
all about it. Thought it'd be very interesting to try it. And I'd say this is the most interesting one of all of them. So it said thinking, and it came back with, okay, the user wants me to complete the sentence. And to paraphrase, it said, first, I should consider why they're asking this. Full paragraph on this topic. The word balloon itself has dual meanings. Well, I really hadn't thought about that. The party decoration or the aircraft. Okay. Then it said, I noticed they used is and not was to present. I was like, okay, wow, it keeps going.
This is deep,
and then,
man.
Then it says, wait, should I prioritize educational correctness or playful creativity? Both, I think. Start with the literal mental checklist. So it must include scientific accuracy and common sensory traits or unexpected twists or a safety note. I thought, really? It's going to add a safety note. So I'm reading this. I'm like, man, this is unbelievable how different this is to respond to this question. It keeps going. It finally says, did I just overthink this balloon? But
it's beautiful.
Tiny prompts,
Absolutely beautiful.
But tiny prompts can hide big needs. That's deep.
That is
deep.
Man.
It keeps going, and it said, it gave me 27 different ways categorically on how to finish this. But remember the choking hazard. It said up here, I think, let's see if here we go. The choking hazard point matters. I mean, I thought, does it really? I just wanted to finish the sentence. But if this is for children, caregivers should appreciate that reminder. I'll tuck it in after some fun examples so it doesn't scare anyone.
This is beautiful. It's just so good. Not just this answer, but how you're processing the fact that an LLM just creates thinking based on a single prompt. I mean, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And number 20 was the balloon is a potential choking hazard. This warning, especially for small children. That was good. It went through the 27 to choose the best. Then it gives me suggestions to choose the best completion. Consider these following elements like floating or deflated or popped or a decoration. But I thought of all of these, the DeepSeek was the most fascinating of all of them.
Yeah, that's really good. I love the fact that it shows really simply how LLM's only model is what's the next most obvious thing I should do, and it processes that depending on how much has been built into that particular LLM model. I mean, it's so fascinating to see that unfold like that.
I agree. Well, much like Mike is diving in, you start to transition this to how does it have some maybe business application or in your own personal productivity. And, Tom, you and I have the ability to really think of this at enterprise scale and level, and how these different LLMs respond affect how effective they are for users. And so this is more focused on, how do I improve personal productivity? Really, those elements of increasing my AI literacy. So I'm going back to this brand new ChatGPT session that I've created. And Mike, I think you had asked last time, how do I get a trait, or how do I get custom instructions into my ChatGPT to improve some of the prompt outcomes?
Yeah.
So I took the liberty of going to my settings and just kind of reviewing them. One of the things I always point out is to make sure that in your data controls, the improve the model for everyone is off. So if you want to make sure what you're sharing and putting in as prompt is not being used by the LLM, if the LLM offers it, which I know ChatGPT does, make sure you turn that off. So that's number one. It's just kind of a good reminder for everybody that's listening.
And just a reminder, everybody, go to the YouTube version, because Ryan is navigating from screen to screen to screen right now and showing you exactly what buttons he's talking about and how to turn them on, how to turn them off, etc.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm going to go to personalization, and now I'm going to custom instructions. And this is quite interesting. So remember, we talked about you control certain things. Well, you control this. So you can give yourself a nickname. You can tell the LLM what you do. Here it talks about a small batch home sourdough baker, for instance, as an example. I'm going to focus in on this element right here, which is what traits should GPT have? And we talked a little bit earlier about what I had nicknamed the magic prompt. Again, a little bit, I'm going to show it here in a second. Tom, I think you're going to post it for our listeners to have access to the magic prompt. And through cultivating a number of different suggestions, kind of in that 23, 24 era, I came up with this prompt. Recently, when I found out that OpenAI had a prompt improver, I ran it through that to even give it more refinement. And it's important to note that you can only put in 1,500 characters. So this prompt that I'm going to show you is really quite dense and rich, and the words are all purposeful. So here it is. I call it the Prompt Completion Guidelines, or PCG for short. I won't step through every element here, but there are a few things I want to highlight. One is that it will stop and ask you 3 questions and create a 3 to 7 item checklist. And it will start with this order. You'll see there's an order number 1 and an order number 2. And in that order number 2, it says, yep, I'm going to take the first response, take into consideration some elements, and then give you a response 2, and then provide a final summary. And in that final summary down here, it will show how it refined the prompt, shaped the response, and adhered to these prompt completion guidelines and the considerations that informed response 2. So think about that. This prompt will first start off with a checklist, ask you 3 questions, come back with a first response, and then on its own can take into a number of considerations and then come back with a second response, but then also tell you why and how it made improvements to its own response. That information can be really helpful, especially when it's something important that you're working on. So what I did is just cut this, and now I'm going to paste it right into my trades. And I'm going to hit save.
So there it is. So again, everybody, watch this on YouTube. It's happening before your very eyes.
Happening before your very eyes, exactly. So these custom instructions. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn it off for enable for new chats. All right. So you can do this too. So once you put this prompt in, if you're like, well, I don't need it for this particular exercise, you can turn it off. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go in and let's just start a prompt. How about I'll just do research. There we go. And it gives me some immediate suggestions. And I'm just going to take, so I'm going to, let's do research trends in artificial intelligence. That seems timely and appropriate. So I'm going to click go, and it's saying thinking, it's summarizing AI trends, it's browsing recent AI articles, and hopefully this happens pretty quickly. For the benefit of our listeners, do we have any hold music or anything?
I could start singing, of course.
At least this is verifying we're doing this unrehearsed real time.
Unrehearsed.
Yeah.
But you'll notice, actually, if you think about when you first maybe tried an LLM, if you haven't used ChatGPT for a while, what came back was fairly quick. And this is really taking quite a bit of time to think through an appropriate answer. More than I was hoping for right at this moment.
Well, we did say in our show notes that this is raw and unfiltered, so we're getting the raw.
By the way,
raw goods.
Brian, this is the free version of ChatGPT, but is this ChatGPT 5?
That's a good question. So 5, it doesn't explicitly say that.
No, this is probably 4.1.
Okay.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, keep going.
All right. So it says, here's a crisp source-based snapshot of the biggest AI trends right now as of September 5th. And it goes into some detail on those. All right. So let's just see what happens when I turn on our magic prompt. And if I go to personalization, custom instructions, and enable for new chats, and I hit save, I'm going to create a new chat. And I'm going to say research. I'm going to say research ideas for my science project. And let's see what comes back. Oh, quick, comes back. And you'll see here how the prompt response acts differently right away.
Yeah.
So it already came back with a 6-point checklist. It refined my prompt, and it's asking the 3 clarifying questions. Now, we don't need to actually demonstrate. I do some easy things like just do a 1 dash and start to answer the question. You have to hit Shift Enter to get a second line without hitting Enter. I'll answer the second question, and I'll do 3 dash and answer the third question. And what comes back is a much more refined and tailored response for what I'm trying to accomplish. And in this case, think about my science project.
So it's using, if you just scroll back up, Ryan, it's using the structure of your magic prompt that you put in settings to create that checklist there, quick checklist of those 6 steps it's going to take you through. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's called a custom instruction. And they're different terminologies and different large language models. In ChatGPT, they've kind of changed the name to what traits do you want the LLM to display? But same effect in that you create the prompt and then it says, okay, what are my custom instructions? And now I'll go to work. But completely changing the way that you work with an LLM, and in many cases, ensuring the type of response you get back is impactful.
Because we talked about this in the last episode, didn't we, everybody? We reminded you of what we've always said about technology and databases and systems: rubbish in, rubbish out. And so you might be tempted here, and I think Mark said last time that he tends to be a bit sort of trigger happy. He just wants to hit return, right? And get something out rather than spend more time putting in the first place. So what you're evidencing here is the more I put in, the more I get out. So it's worth spending an extra minute or 2 or 3 or 5 putting in and suspending your desire to get out just for a few minutes. Is that right, Ryan?
I think it is. It's part of that AI literacy and how to effectively work with a large language model. We've demonstrated that there's any number of models out there that accomplish different tasks specifically or respond to the very same prompt in very different ways. But then there's also ways to elevate the way you're working with that LLM when things start to matter, like your personal productivity, or you're working with a business task that you have at hand. And this all leads to, which LLM is the right one for particular large scale solutions, right? Those are all decisions that need to be made in those types of architectures. But this is really just focused in on personal productivity and AI literacy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Fabulous. So good. So good. So the thing that I think is also helpful here is if you put this into your baseline setting structure, it's going to force this every time. And so there are times that you may go, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to be Mark Redgrave every so often, just to go trigger happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's helpful to know that this using this kind of capability in your settings forces you to be more efficient and effective at prompting. It just forces it. Right. That's what I like about it.
In fact, Tom, you just reminded me. So, just to keep everybody on the same page, you can turn this off. So, if you don't want that prompt or something, you can turn it off. But I found the Mark Redgrave setting. You can go to default and have it act as a cynic or a critical and sarcastic response every time.
Yep. Every time, which will be perfect.
So you can have both of those activated, right? You can activate the personality, which again you're showing on the screen here, and you could leave your prompt structure active, right? And you get a combination of both now. Is that correct?
That's right. We've solved Mark's problem. So where is he?
The options are default, cynic, which is critical and sarcastic, robot, efficient and blunt, listener, thoughtful and supportive, nerd, exploratory and enthusiastic.
but keep in mind, Mike, I think you brought this up on our last episode. We were talking about, well, what's kind of that default setting? And it's cheerful and adaptive, which is what Mark didn't want.
Yeah, right. Stop agreeing with me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think it's just such an important way to see and be aware of this additional layer that we can all use to amplify our effectiveness with using the tool, with using the capabilities that OpenAI has. There are also, if you use other LLMs, and I happen to subscribe to all of them, I've been testing this one in like Claude and that, and it's pretty close to effective in all of those other platforms as well. So Gemini has capabilities, Perplexity, which kind of does different things, but it's really forcing you to think differently about how you're prompting. So
Tom, you mean you've been copying and pasting that same structure that Ryan just showed us, and you've been going into the settings in those different LLMs, putting it in there,
yes,
saving it, leaving it on, and then trying it.
Now, ChatGPT really is the leader in the regard to really making this user friendly. I think they do a really good job. So those extra settings that Ryan just talked about, which is the cynic and it's really good at that kind of stuff. It really has figured out, OpenAI has really figured out user interface stuff that makes it so much more compelling. Some of the other ones don't do as good a job at that, but there is the capability to add these super prompts into it. Another thing, Ryan, that I might add to this is there is in all of the tools from ChatGPT to Claude to Perplexity, Grok, all have these. They have a structure called projects. And in projects, you can actually use this prompt within a project. So it's a way to hack not having to use it all the time. And so if you put this into a specific project, you have the ability to actually add in that capability, that what you call your super prompt, into a project, and thus everything in that project responds to that requirement then.
Yeah.
And you said they all have that capability, and sometimes that's called something different, I think. So for instance, in Copilot, I think it's called Notebook or something like that, where you can go in there and now that you're operating on a inside of a project environment, or in this case, Notebook, it's accumulating and compounding the dialogue on that, within that container of that project. I mean, potentially forever if you keep asking it to refresh and deeper and broader and keep going.
Yes.
I'll add one more for you. If you don't know where to find the settings, you can literally cut and paste that prompt completion guideline in your prompt. So you can say, I want to research a science project, paste the prompt completion guidelines, and it'll follow it then with that prompt.
Yeah.
We're going to put a link in the show notes, Tom, where they can go and copy paste that.
Show notes will go to our new Prompt and Circumstance GitHub account, where you can pull the raw data file right from there really easily. So you just copy and paste it from there. So
everybody, Tom shared that with us just before the show and sent an email around. So I wrote back saying, Tom, please, in plain English, remind me what GitHub is again. So tell us what you came back with, Tom.
Okay, well, I'm just going to show you, because since we're showing things today, I'm going to show, because this is actually showing Ryan's tool at work. So you'll notice I asked it to say, for a newbie, how would you define GitHub using a metaphor or some other thing, like GitHub is to software what blank is to blank.
And you'll notice, everybody, that Tom was being quite polite. He called me a newbie.
Right.
Thank you, Tom. I am grateful. I'm grateful that that's all you called me. Thank you.
I did the best I could, but notice it comes back with checklist. Define GitHub using metaphor. Keep it simple, newbie friendly. Use clear X is to Y, what A is to B. Provide 3 to 5 variations. Avoid jargon. Keep it relatable. It refined the prompt. It asked me 3 clarifying questions. Ryan, you'll notice I didn't give it numbers. I just answered, and it's quite fine with that. And then it gave me the answers. GitHub is to software what Google Drive is to documents. GitHub is to software what a fridge is to leftovers. And it gave a bunch of really cool responses that I then sent back to Mike. And Mike, did that help understand what GitHub was?
I wrote back to Tom saying, now you're speaking my language. Thank you so much indeed.
Right. And so I think it's what you saw in a really simple way is that it really gave me a chance, even on the simplest of requests, it forced me back into clarifying the prompt and being really clear. And now I got great answers back instead of potentially a random set like Ryan showed us at the beginning, where one simple question gives you a multitude of different answers. So
you just caused something to pop in my mind, guys, and that is this concept of those clarifying questions that you want it to ask you for you to clarify the prompt. Of course, that relates to what we do in peer groups. If any of the listeners are members of my peer groups or other peer groups, it's before we rush to, judgment about a particular issue, challenge, problem, opportunity that somebody's got, and we get very solution oriented. We want to understand the problem first.
Yes.
And so we go through a phase called asking clarifying questions. And sometimes we might spend most of our time asking clarifying questions to really zero in on, are we working on the right issue, problem, challenge, opportunity? Do we fully understand it? What was it Einstein said? Something like, if I've got 60 minutes, to work on something, I'll spend the 55 working on the problem and 5 minutes working on the solution.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, that was fabulous, Ryan. That was really helpful. And again, we believe that probably watching the video is going to be more helpful than just listening to it. But I believe even listening, you'll be able to figure some of that out as long as you use the show notes to get access to that super prompt. So let's wrap then with what can somebody do with this? And Ryan, maybe start with you. What's a next step anyone listening can do based on what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I always recommend go with what you know, right? Start with something that you're working on. Use the super prompt, the magic prompt, try it out. But it's always I think best to start with some context or topics that you know, and that gives you the ability to see, is this right? Is it hallucinating or not? The prompt completion guidelines are intended to try to eliminate as much of that error and omission or hallucination and provide cited examples of what you're looking for. But that's a great place to start. And to Mike's point, have it challenge it. Say, well, what is a contrary view to this, if you will, and start to explore your ideas.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's fabulous. Mike, do you have any other recommendations for what to do this next week?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to do this with my forums in the next cycle here over the next few weeks and month. And I'm going to take some inspiration from the book, The AI-Driven Leader, where, of course, he recommends, Jeff Woods, the author, he recommends, look, choose some low-hanging fruit. Choose a business process, choose a task, choose an element of your workload where you could sort of triangulate a better, faster, cheaper approach using AI in some way, shape, or form. You could find a much more efficient way to get something done, a much more effective way to get something done, a much faster, better, cheaper way to get something done. And, his recommendation is don't overthink it. Just create a long list of ideas, come up with the short list, choose one, and lean into that one thing and start to really tackle as a project now, how could I tackle that one thing using AI? And you're probably not going to come up with the right answer right out of the gate. You're going to try this and try that and try the other, and maybe 15 days later, 30 days later, 45 days later, especially if you mobilize a bit of a task team and get your IT person and your marketing person, whatever it is, around the table, maybe you can create a breakthrough with that thing, and all of a sudden work, load, burden has been liberated, and you're now getting back, some bandwidth to apply to more strategic things.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it. Mine layers into both of yours, but maybe really pragmatically, which is something that Ryan was doing, was showing us how he gets around. If you're going to be using ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, whatever you're going to use, Gemini, get to know the settings. Like take 10 minutes and dig inside and go, is there personalization? Where is it? How do I find this? Because so often we use like 10% of the capability because we don't know what Ryan just showed us, which is, if you just do this over here, or I want a cynical response, know where that is so you can actually adjust your toolkit to give you a better result for you, not just so that you get the magic of the response. Like, actually figure out how these tools work. I have found that extraordinarily helpful to me. Once I play with the tool, one of the first things I do is I never read the instructions, but I always go fiddle around and find things under the hood, and I go, oh, if that's there, what else is there? So it's really cool.
It reminds me of the early days of any new technology, any software, right? What you find is, this piece of software has these buttons, whereas this one doesn't. There's a different set of buttons, and you wish, I wish that had this and that, and vice versa. So we said last time, everybody, keep an inventory of prompts because if this particular platform that you want to use because for this particular application doesn't quite have those settings, there's nothing to stop you being able to go over here to a Word document or a OneNote or something, and as Ryan said earlier, copy and paste the super prompt. Yep. Copy and paste. I want you to act like a cynical, Mark Redgrave, or whatever it is, right? You can always have that inventory for yourself and achieve the same effect as you would in some of the settings.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Ryan, you carried the load today, so thank you to you for showing us around and doing some of that advanced stuff. And hopefully this was helpful. There'll be full show notes. Check out our show notes. And gentlemen, we will catch up in a couple of weeks. Thank you again.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Prompt and Circumstance. Thanks for hanging out with these four at the roundtable today. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And if you've got a thought, question, or AI hot take, send it our way. Find the bios for Mike, Ryan, Mark, and Tom, as well as show notes and more at the podcast website, promptandcircumstancepodcast.com. Until next time, keep playing, keep curious, and we'll see you in the next episode.